This is an incoming transmission from the Jersey Shore.
This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, powered by McLean Advisory Group. Today you'll hear some of the most important financial information and wealth-building techniques available anywhere.
Let's get this party started, huh?
Do you have a question for Scott and the team?
Am I on the air?
609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646.
We'll get that information to them by radio.
Now, Financial Insanity with Scott McLean.
Have you ever looked back at something you've done, some decision you've made, or possibly something you've said, and thought to yourself, oh boy, I really wish I hadn't done that? Of course you have. We all have. Welcome to today's Financial Insanity. I'm your host, Alex Dingman, alongside, as always, Scott McLean of McLean Advisory Group here in Waretown. And Scott, I'm sure you have no regrets, right? No decisions.
Absolutely not. Now that I'm here with you, I feel everything's wonderful.
Yes, of course, of course. Well, today we're talking about regrets, but we're going to get more specific. We're going to talk about financial regrets that many Americans share. And I do want to give out that phone number in case you have any questions, you hear something today that resonates with you. That number, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. Scott, I want to talk a little bit here about this new survey, talking about financial regrets of American retirees. If you could.
There's a lot of regrets, Alex. There's a lot out there.
Yeah, and look at these numbers, too, because you're not alone out there.
No, I think when I look at it, I think 77% have financial regrets. That means if I do a seminar and I've got 10 people in the seminar, 8 of them have a regret. And I do seminars. We just did a whole bunch of workshops. And the biggest thing I found, number one regret, not saving enough or not starting early enough. That's the number one regret. That's number one. And they wish they saved more. Number two, I think you look at number two is an emergency fund. Number two is not having enough. And I go over that with people so often. And we also talk about maybe if they have a mortgage and they have a lot of IRA money, should they get a equity line of credit? Not to use, but as a backup, because what I find is if there's an emergency, they go use up their IRA account. They pay massive in taxes when they didn't have to, and they couldn't get a game plan. And again, number three, maybe it's out there. Maybe you're out there. 14% are regretting they have too much credit card debt. They keep going into the mill. And now, of course, when you have inflation as it was, now they're frankly helping their kids out. And I find that to be tremendous. There's a lot of other debts I've spoken to people over the years, but those would be the top ones, Alex. And I if you've got questions out there, please give our studios a call.
Want to learn more?
609-488-4646. Again, 609-488-4646.com if you want to check us out on the website to learn more. We want to help guide you. And I can tell you these regrets, they're real. By the way, regrets is okay if you do something about it.
Right.
But regrets could be permanent if you don't do anything.
No, absolutely. You mentioned that credit card debt, and I remember reading, too, that the amount of people with over $20,000 of credit card debt is really high as well. I want to say something like half of the folks that have credit card debt have even over $20,000 worth of that debt. And so, Scott, why do you think so many of these people are in this position with these regrets going into retirement? Is it just a lack of education around money, or what do you see?
Well, yeah, you think about really in simple terms, and to keep it basic, I don't want anybody to feel guilty listening. This is what I don't want. But I do want you to take action. But unfortunately, 40% of people who have financial regrets haven't really made any progress. Maybe because they haven't had a coach. Maybe because they didn't have somebody guiding them. Maybe some of you out there need someone to lean on you. But you think about it, the past 12 months, maybe you haven't made any progress at all. Again, when you look at the statistics will show 44%, maybe they've made some progress. And only about 16% really made a little bit more significant progress. So again, this is why people, maybe, those do-it-yourselfers out there, they think they're going to get ahead. Maybe they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. They're taking one credit card that has interest. They're getting a 0 credit card interest, and they keep rolling the debt.
Mm-hmm.
This is where we find people getting really lack of preparation, lack of guidance, and this needs help.
Yeah.
This is part of retirement, Alex.
Well, and Scott, I think part of it too, and this isn't an excuse, it's just reality, is that people don't know where to start. And I think that's where one thing that we're trying to encourage folks is that if you do have questions, Scott McLean, the team at McLean Advisory Group, can help. And that number is 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. But you know how it is. Sometimes it's like, you got to clean out that garage, but it's such a mess. You put it off for so long because you're just worried about, how do I even start? I mean, where do I even begin?
And they get frustrated.
You get frustrated.
And when you get frustrated, it's almost like you put the stuff on the side. I'll get to it later. We don't want to get to the stuff that's the hardest. Almost in every work, you get to work and you work on the stuff that's easy. And there's a book out there, Eat That Frog. Great book, by the way, for you parents who have kids as well as your procrastinators out there. Eat That Frog. What a great book. Start with the simple things, write them down, but then put a deadline date to knock it out. And if you don't knock it out, then you have someone, I call it an accountability coach. Maybe it's your son, your daughter, where you might need help. And this is where regrets really happen, because you keep putting it aside. And then when you're found out, you feel guilty as all get out, and you cower down. And then say, you know what, then forget it. And that's where it becomes disastrous. Alex, I just had a meeting with a lovely gentleman who came into my workshop just a short time ago I spoke to you about.
Mm-hmm.
About 6 years ago, I did an estate planning workshop. Now, this gentleman is worth quite a bit of money. And a beautiful wife, beautiful son, stepson, and, 2 sons.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's a family feud. Now there's a lot of money in the estate. What's the problem? Well, they were so busy making money. We're talking a lot of money. In other words, more money than the estate inheritance tax can handle. It's almost 3 times more than the estate inheritance. So we got a big estate problem. And I said, why didn't you come visit with me before? He goes, Scott, I really liked you a lot, but I was so busy making money that it got out of hand. And I just kept accumulating, and they bought lots and lots of assets. I won't say any more about it, but I'm saying, you know what? He comes in, he goes, I feel comfortable talking to you about now, Scott, because I see that we have a new person coming into the White House, possibly, depending on who you vote for. I'm not going to pick on either side. I want to say taxes is a number one. The economics issues right now, number one, taxes number one. I don't know which is number one, economics or taxes, but either way, they're going to affect your pocketbook. And he finally comes in and says, Scott, I need help. I need you to talk about my estate planning lawyer, work with my people. I hear you do that all the time. And I do. By the way, if you're out there, I don't want to see you frozen like a deer in headlights just to get whacked by the IRS or whacked by the crows and the clowns that show up at the funeral. Regret is forever if you don't do something. And I think, Alex, you chose today's program because we're hearing a lot about that. Don't regret not to vote. Even if you don't like either one, pick one, but don't put it aside.
Right.
And I encourage you to do that.
It starts with a plan. We talk about people not knowing where to begin, maybe being a little bit frozen. And that would be one thing we'd want to try to motivate you with, is that know that there is a plan out there, that whatever your situation, Scott and his team can help design a custom plan to make sure it addresses all the things, because you just mentioned it. You talked about the taxes, and that is really part of a comprehensive approach. And Scott, when you're looking at somebody and they're coming in, they're talking to you about pre-retirement or retirement, you're looking at everything. You're looking at, okay, how can we get steady paychecks in retirement? But you're also looking at things like making sure that we're being tax efficient, making sure that we have things set up for our estate in a smart way so that you're not banged by, a huge tax burden. The other thing is, too, this time of year, for folks out there, maybe you have questions about the impact of the election. And we're not talking about getting political. We're just saying, what could be the potential impact here? What are some things that I can do with my portfolio, with my plan, that in another 4 years, I'm not, maybe freaking out or overly concerned with who's in the White House, because I have a plan that's built for any situation. And so I know that those are some things that you really pride yourself on, Scott, is being comprehensive and being able to set up plans that can, survive whatever storm may be out there.
The storms I'm seeing that so often I talk to families, just as today, I've already had 3 different meetings with people. And I always ask this question, if in one case this morning at 9:30, I was speaking to this lovely couple, and I said, if your wife passes away, are you okay? $33,000 comes off of your budget. They both looked at me like I had screw loose. And I said, wait a minute. You keep the highest of Social Security. He was getting $36,000. She was getting $33,000. They saved a lot. They made a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And I said, did you know that when you die, you keep the highest of the two? So $33,000 is coming off the table. When you spoke to they have 3 advisors. When you spoke to your advisors and he or she looked at your tax return and then asked, can you ferret out how much you need on a monthly basis? Can you handle losing $3,000 a month? By the way, they had 2 pensions. They're going to lose one of the pensions. And they said, well, no one ever asked us that. I said, did they ever look at the tax returns? No. Did they ever look at the will, power of attorney, living will, to find out who the beneficiary is? No. Did they ever talk about, if your lights went dim, can we protect the house from the nursing care? Can we protect the assets for the family, not the IRS? And they said, no one looked at that. I said, how do you feel about that? They looked at me like, we don't like it. Are you ready to make a change? Yes. I said, now you've got to make a change who you want to work with. It doesn't have to be me, but you've got to figure, you've got 3 financial advisors and none of them ask you. Maybe you need to interview a few other financial advisors, or maybe you'd like to come back. You see, at our firm, Alex, we do not ask people to do business with us when we meet them. We just want to get to know them. We want to make sure we understand their dreams. And then we want to understand their dollars so they're in the right place. Then how do we handle it for their dynasty, the family? And this is, if you're listening to me right now and you haven't looked at your estate, as Alex said, in the big picture, what if scenarios? What if your lights go dim? Do you have the proper paperwork, the power of attorney for healthcare matters? Do you have the right paperwork to pay your bills? Who's going to be the power of attorney if your wife passes away? When I said to the couple, well, we don't have that document. We need to get this thing done now. If you do nothing with me, let's get this taken care of. I'll call any lawyer you want. You can use ours in the firm, or you can use anyone. You need to take care of it. And I usually say this, Alex, they kind of think I'm funny. If you were my brother or sister, I'd yell at you. But I'm not going to. I really want you to take care of this. This is important.
Want to learn more?
609-488-4646. Let me see if I can help you. 609-488-4646. This is Scott McLean. Please take this time and don't have any regrets if you can help it.
Hey, Scott, where do sheep go on vacation?
I don't know. Where?
The Bahamas.
I think. Have you been drinking? What are you drinking?
Hey. Don't ask me that, all right?
I want to go to the Bahamas real soon. It's getting cold.
We can drink down there together.
I love it.
Do you want your retirement to be affected by who's in the White House? We didn't think so. But here's the thing. No matter who wins this time, they'll only be in the office for 4 more years. But how long will your retirement last? Presidents can have a huge impact on taxes and the economy, but there's another presidential election in 4 years, then another, and so on. Scott McLean at McLean Advisory Group can help you create a customized plan that's as White House proof as possible. Schedule your visit with Scott McLean today by calling 609-488-4646. Scott doesn't know who will win in November, but he can help you prepare for it, no matter what happens. Reach out to Scott McLean to get started. Call 609-488-4646. Don't let who's in the White House affect your retirement. Give Scott a call, 609-488-4646. No cost, no obligation. 609-488-4646. Investment advisory services are offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC.
at all this stuff and you try to put it away like these hoarders on TV. It has an emotional attachment.
So, Scott, you're saying I don't have to keep every single drawing that my son has done? You're saying I could throw some of that away?
The answer is yes. You can take a picture, then throw it out.
This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, presented by McLean Advisory Group.
When planning for retirement, are you confident you're not making any mistakes? Would you like to know more now so you don't have a painful lesson in the future? Of course, right? Well, good thing you're joining us today on Financial Insanity, because throughout the years, Scott McLean and his great team at McLean Advisory Group has identified 5 common mistakes people often make before they enter retirement. And so you're going to want to listen today. And the first one, Scott, first common mistake is, well, pretty simple. You don't have a fully mapped out retirement strategy.
Nothing. So many times, and we have a unique process. If anybody would like to get it from us, please feel free to ask for Bonnie at 609-488-4646. I have a unique email I can send you as you try to map out your strategies. And I actually have it really laid out as you put your budget together. This is not a do-it-over plan. This is not let's test it out plan. I mean, if you made a couple critical mistakes, it could really affect the quality of retirement. So again, as you map out the retirement, what does it look like, feel like? How much we saving, how much we spending? And this is number one, problem number one. If you're forced into retirement, that's okay. I understand. As we talked about in an earlier segment, we spoke about, Alex, about long-term care.
Yeah.
If you're forced into it because you're taking care of your grandson, or maybe your wife has to, or your husband has to take off work to take care of their beautiful spouse. Sometimes we're forced in these situations. Okay, what does that look like? Seek help, and let's do a map out a plan, because this is not a do-it-yourself gimmick. You go to the place where people have gone through this challenge before and seek help, because it's not only where does the money come from, it's how much tax am I going to have to pay? It's will I run out of money before I run out of life?
Yep. You got to look at everything, and that's what we mean by a fully mapped out retirement strategy. It's hard to look at everything if you don't know everywhere to look, and that's where somebody like Scott McLean can really help out at McLean Advisory Group. All right, second common mistake people make before retiring is, well, you're living beyond your means, contributing little or nothing to the savings you'll need after your paychecks stop. You don't want to do that.
No, and if you're out there and you're about to retire or plan on retiring, maybe your favorite sport is, let's say, bowling. Maybe you get a job at a bowling alley and have a little extra income coming in. After you do, plan one, figure out what your budget is. Number two, are you spending too much? When the grandbabies start to pop out of the oven and you start visiting them, maybe go to the thrift store versus the Lehman Marcus store. Maybe
Right.
you get a little bit more frugal, because again, burning your cash could be tremendously burden to your retirement. And then of course it could affect you if you have a good long life. Maybe you don't want to have cat food when you're 80 years old. So be very, very cautious and be diligent on how much you're spending, because you can spend beyond your means. Plus you got kids knocking on the door. Dad, Mom, can I get some money? I can't pay my mortgage. Mom, Dad, I'm going through a divorce. Can you help me? I need some money. Mom, Dad, I'd surely like my son to have special football shoes. Can you help me? And I'm not saying any of those are bad, but the question is, when the door starts knocking, thinking about how your retirement could start knocking.
Yep, and it's that dirty B word. And no, not that one, but the other dirty B word, budget. And, it's that old adage, you got to pay yourself first. And this is that situation where you got to make sure that you're putting that money in for when those paychecks that you currently have stop. And like you said, you can have some part-time work, but you're not going to want to work just as much for retirement, because that's not retirement. So how do you replace those paychecks? And that's the kind of thing Scott McLean, his team at McLean Advisory Group, can help with. That number is always 609-488-4646. 4646, going over some common mistakes people make before entering retirement, trying to help you get ahead of these things. The first one we talked about, not having a fully mapped out retirement strategy. And the second one is living beyond your means, not contributing enough to the savings you're going to need after those paychecks stop. So the third common mistake, Scott, is that, well, you're under the impression that you're going to be healthy forever. And therefore, you're ignoring the cost of health care in retirement. And you can hear from Scott that that's just not going to be the case. You're not going to be healthy forever. And there's, like we mentioned, long-term care before, just health care in general. These are things, again, you got to budget for.
You do. And if there's a lot of tools out there, but I can tell you, if you have an HSA, please jump on that. As long as it's not the use it or lose it plan, you need to find out about that. Great place to really pack away money, especially if those are heading into retirement. If you can really start plowing money away into an HSA. If not, start plowing your money, maybe if you can, into an IRA. If your spouse is not working, maybe plow your money into an IRA Roth as a spousal Roth plan if one of you are still working. So again, think about the money as you're having it in there, and if in case you need it, where do you pull it from, and how the tax implication will happen. Because the third mistake is, again, we're all going to stay healthy. And God, we know, I take tons of vitamins. I want to stay healthy. But as Alex knows, we all get hurt, get injured, things happen. And when they happen, you feel like a $6 million man, then you're being a 2-cent man because you kind of sit in your bed saying, I can't get out. I can't do this. I can't do what I used to do. Please pay attention. Look at the dollars. Yep. And again, watch out how much you spend. The part number 2 we just spoke about. Again, you're very important to pay attention to that, your health. And get it. Yeah. And you know what? Work out. Go to the gym. That's probably the best thing for most everybody listening right now. Get your butt to the gym, work out, do the treadmill, do something, at least 45 minutes a day, do some kind of cardio work.
Yeah, you could walk to go visit Scott McLean and his team at McLean Advisory Group if you would like, right here in Waretown. He'll help you with those.
Buy Dunkin' Donuts on the way.
Yeah, there you go. Why not? I'm sure Scott would take something for you.
Absolutely.
Not necessary, but he'll take it. Again, that number 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. 4646, and we're going through these common mistakes people make before entering retirement. And really one of the big points is just, Scott, you've seen this stuff. I mean, you haven't seen it all. There's something new every day, but you've seen a lot. You've seen a lot of different situations and different things that have worked for different kinds of people and in different situations at different times, and things that people have forgotten. And so these mistakes, you go through them in your head, you're thinking, yep, I can think of a couple times that somebody maybe was doing this. And so this is where having someone like you can step in and just take a realistic look at things. It's like, yeah, you think you're going to live forever, or you want to keep spending as much money as you want right now without thinking about the future. And Scott's somebody that can sit down and say, hey, let's just go ahead and go over this. Let's really be realistic about this, because at the end of the day, you're going to feel better about things if you know that things have been addressed and that you have a plan.
There's no doubt. You don't want to, again, like I say, you want to help the kids out, the family out, give money away. And the question is, you're not paying attention to, maybe you're going to live a good long life, and will you have enough money versus not having enough money and too much life left over.
Yeah. Well,
you got inflation, Alex. You got inflation coming up too. That's another person we can talk about.
That is absolutely true. And that's why it's almost kind of silly when I say you got to have a plan, because you do have to have a plan, but part of that plan has to be those things you can't plan for. You got to have those funds and those strategies for when stuff is going to hit the fan, or when something unheard of is going to happen.
I mean, these old folks listen to me right now. You're same age as me, probably out there for sure. Probably I'm a little older. But you think about rapid inflation we saw in the 82 to 90, where we saw interest rates just scream. It just went up. Now, we just saw it just scream past year and a half faster on a short-term period than we did in 82 to 90. And so we saw that scream so rapidly. So, and I just spoke to someone today, that's why their bond account dropped so rapidly. They thought, Scott, I thought bonds were safe. I said, did the advisor keep you in the bond account? They said, yes. I said, that's a shame, because it's when you see rapid inflation, you don't want to be in these sort of tools that could really evaporate your money, and bonds will go down even though you thought they're safe. Again, how do you fight for inflation? Are you putting enough away? And I think this is a big misnomer. Hey, by the way, mom and dad, are you out there? Grandpa, grandma. I think about this because I'm a grandpa as well. You think about this. If you could teach your kids one simple rule, Alex, this is for you too, and all you young studettes down there or studs out there, 10% of your income. So if you're making $300 a week, $30. You're making $3,000 a week, $300. 10% of your income should be put away for your retirement. And so if you're doing that, but if your wife is working or spouse is working, again, 10% of their income, this is a very easy formula. I can tell you most people don't do it, or they do it and they end up putting their hand in the cookie jar and yanking it out later. If you could just drill this into the kids, 10% every time you get paid, I can tell you, you will be so far ahead. If you do what other people won't do, you'll have what other people won't have. I promise you, do it. 10%. Use that number.
And that number for Scott and his team, McLean Advisory Group, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646, ada.com for the website. As we're going through 5 common mistakes people often make before they enter retirement, we have 2 more on the other side.
Who likes uncertainty? Wall Street certainly does not. With near record inflation and partisan politics, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. What will America's future look like? What will your future look like? Will your taxes go up? Will your savings go down? For more than 40 years here in the Jersey Shore area, Scott McLean and the team at McLean Advisory Group have seen uncertainty come and go. No matter what the future holds, Scott can help you create a plan designed to preserve your finances in uncertain times. And it's not a matter of if those uncertain times will show up, but when. Call 609-488-4646 now to meet with Scott McLean and the team at McLean Advisory Group. If uncertainty is causing you to feel insecure, Scott McLean might be able to help. Call 609-488-4646 and schedule your visit today. Again, that's 609-488-4646.
Investment advisory services are offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Do you want your retirement to be affected by who's in the White House? We didn't think so. But here's the thing. No matter who wins this time, they'll only be in the office for 4 more years. But how long will your retirement last? Presidents can have a huge impact on taxes and the economy, but there's another presidential election in 4 years, then another, and so on. Scott McLean at McLean Advisory Group can help you create a customized plan that's as White House proof as possible. Schedule your visit with Scott McLean today by calling 609-488-4646. Scott doesn't know who will win in November, but he can help you prepare for it, no matter what happens. Reach out to Scott McLean to get started. Call 609-488-4646. Don't let who's in the White House affect your retirement. Give Scott a call, 609-488-4646. No cost, no obligation. 609-488-4646. Investment advisory services are offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC.
Retirement planning, investment planning is a two-way street. It's got to meet. I need to understand the good, bad, and ugly you've been through so we can avoid those issues. This, to me, is very important.
We made it back. This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, presented by McLean Advisory Group.
We are using Scott and his team's decades of experience to identify 5 common mistakes people often make before they hit retirement. Last segment, we went over not having a fully mapped out retirement strategy, living beyond your means, and ignoring healthcare costs in retirement. We'll go back through those real quickly again, but we want to get to the next 2. And the 4th common mistake, Scott, is you aren't saving enough to account for inflation. You mentioned this briefly, but that's a big one.
So we spoke about the very basic rules for the younger people, and of course older people as well. Use the rule of the 10% rule. But if we know inflation's up to 6%, well, can you add? Is it possible? And I don't want to be dictating on the radio saying it's possible, because when inflation takes off, it's hard to save money. But if you can actually put a little extra percentage away just to keep up with inflation, if the boss gives you a raise, can you say, great, let's go ahead and put that full raise into my savings account, my 401k, my 403b, my Roth IRA. Can I put that away? Or maybe some of you just into a liquid cash account. Where do we put that money? I was just looking at some accounts today, and I've just noticed today, speaking to you guys, there's some accounts out there paying 6.15% guaranteed for 5 years. I've never seen it this high. I'm not trying to sell you on you guys listening to me. I'm telling you, I was excited to see that because I know people want safe money, no fees, no expense, $6,150 on every $100,000. In other words, that's almost like what? $500 you could put in your pocket just for every single period you want. Just want to take some money out. $6,000 you could grow on that guaranteed bucket. So again, there's some safe places to put money out there. How do you take it out? Is it taxable or non-taxable? But again, you've got to put it away. So inflation. And then you've got to really buckle down and just be a real savvy shopper and look at how you can buy, or can you put off things, or can you reduce your expenses if you're really, really, really hurting for cash, because this is so important. But it will end. Inflation will go, schools change. It's just how are you getting through it now?
Yeah. Well, and you said something really smart too, and this goes for anybody, but something happens where, okay, a windfall, or you're going to consistently be getting more money now, and you just put that money away, and you keep living as you were living before under the same budget. And that extra money, that's the stuff that, okay, you are already saving for retirement and you had a savings. Well, in that savings now it's accounting for inflation also because of the extra money you're able to put in. And so I just think that's really wise as well, giving people the green light to say, hey, you get that raise or you get that other stream of income coming in, and you just keep your budget the same and you put that extra money aside because you are going to need it in the future. It is going to happen.
Sneaks up on all of us for sure. Everyone. I don't care if, by the way, if you're thinking, well, that's easy to say if you're rich and wealthy. Let me tell you something. They scrimp and save money just like you. They're budgeting money. They're watching their dollars. When COVID hit, they didn't go out and buy fancy rings and Rolexes and stuff. They were watching their money. When the market took a drop, two different drops in 2000 to 2003, 50% drop, 2007 to 2009, almost a 60% drop. You tell me the wealthy wasn't concerned? Well, everyone was concerned. And if we have another stock market tremendous challenge, this is why people are calling us and meeting with us, because there could be something down the line, let alone with inflation, but let alone being sick and disabled, let alone the 5 common mistakes people have, spending too much money. But the question is, are you really paying attention to what's going on? If not, get an advisor who's really in the know.
And the number for Scott and his team at McLean Advisory Group, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. As Scott and his team have identified 5 common mistakes people often make before they enter retirement. The final common retirement planning mistake: you haven't planned for the possibility of long-term care. We're going back to something we mentioned earlier, but we want to put a bow on the thought because it is important. It can't be overlooked. And it's something we mentioned earlier, that those that are turning 65 right now, over half of them are going to need long-term care in the future.
You know, I haven't said this in the last show, and I apologize to our veterans and to our spouses of veterans during wartime. It doesn't mean your spouse was in, let's say, Vietnam, Afghanistan. They could be here stateside, but they qualify for benefits. And there's some very unique benefits if you're listening to me now, whether you're World War II, still around, Korea, Vietnam, and you think Gulf, and all these different wars that came out, the veterans have a very unique plan. If you have a question, you're a veteran out there, I can guide you in the areas of, could there be some benefits for you or your spouse if you serve during these times? They call the aid and attendance pension benefit. And I can tell you, people overlook that, especially financial planners really don't ask those questions, which we do. because we want to help our vets and we want you to get the most out of it. The second thing we think about on top of that long-term care is, again, maybe you're guiding your mom and dad and maybe you're taking care of them. Maybe they moved into your house. How are you entering them on the tax returns? This is kind of off the color. We talk about benefits, but this could be a benefit. How are you taking care of them? Is there any deductions? How are you keeping records of taking care of your mom and dad? Maybe it's your husband, your wife, your children, your grandchildren. So you want to look at all the different areas, again, of where to get the money. How do I pull the money out if I need the money? Am I saving enough money in case something does happen? And then again, how does it look in the big picture? How do I protect my money? And so that would go into the legal aspects of trust planning. So as we look at the 3D process, our 3D planning process, the dreams, keeping your money together, the dollars, how they're going to last, and then the dynasty, how does it pass it on? How can we look at all three areas with these 3D glasses? So when we talk about it, this will help you when you put your head on the pillow, think, you know what? I think I'm buttoned up pretty good. Let's just double check. Let's meet with Scott.
Yep.
609-488-4646. Please, this is a time not to play as we head into a new year. This is a great time to plan. And again, 609-488-4646. No cost, no obligation. If you've got questions, I can tell you I'll get the answer. And if I don't have the answer, I will find the answer. I'm pretty good at this, but if I don't have an answer off the cuff, I will get the answer. I've known tons of people, and I can tell you that it's nothing worse than having a question unanswered.
Absolutely. And today we went over 5 common mistakes people often make before retirement. To recap, the first mistake, not having a fully mapped out retirement strategy. If you don't feel like you've addressed everything, now's the time to get with Scott. Or if you're just not even sure, then check in with the team at McLean Advisory Group. What about living beyond your means so you're not saving enough for when you get into retirement? This is a big one. If you need help budgeting, again, Scott and his team can help out. You also don't want to ignore healthcare costs in retirement. This is big, as we all think that we're bulletproof, or maybe we just don't quite understand what it's going to look like and how we're going to pay for healthcare in retirement. It's all part of that all-encompassing, comprehensive strategy. You got to look at that. Another mistake, not saving enough to account for inflation. We've definitely seen that one rear its ugly head, and it'll happen again in the future. Got to make sure you're setting some funds aside for that. And then the fifth common mistake, not planning for the possibility of long-term care. So we talked about healthcare costs, but you have that, and that's different than, well, you might have an extended stay or extended care treatment that is needed for you or a loved one, and you definitely got to look at that. But this is all something that has to do with stuff that you can look at to make sure that you're really looking at everything, that 3D approach that you talk about. That's why it's so important to come in and get guidance from somebody like Scott. That number again, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646, add.com for the website. Well, good stuff. Scott, real quick, how does a salad say grace?
Wow, how?
Let us pray. This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, McLean Advisory Group. Thanks for joining us.
Stop for a moment and think about this. Do you know how much money in your 401k or IRA is actually yours? Or will the government take a bigger chunk than you thought? Remember, you still might owe taxes on that money, but do you have a plan to help make sure you don't pay more than you should? At McLean Advisory Group, we believe you deserve to keep more of what you've earned, which is why we're here to help you navigate the confusing world of retirement taxes. It's your money. You deserve to know what's at stake. Right now, taxes are historically low, but they won't be this low forever. So call the McLean Advisory Group team today so you don't miss out on this opportunity. 609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646. You work hard for your money. and we'll work just as hard to help you keep it. McLean Advisory Group, 609-488-4646. Investment advisory services offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. McLean Tax Advisory Group and Sound Income Strategies are not associated entities.
Do you want your retirement to be affected by who's in the White House? We didn't think so. But here's the thing. No matter who wins this time, they'll only be in the office for 4 more years. But how long will your retirement last? Presidents can have a huge impact on taxes and the economy, but there's another presidential election in 4 years, then another, and so on. Scott McLean at McLean Advisory Group can help you create a customized plan that's as White House proof as possible. Schedule your visit with Scott McLean today by calling 609-488-4646. Scott doesn't know who will win in November, but he can help you prepare for it, no matter what happens. Reach out to Scott McLean to get started. Call 609-488-4646. Don't let who's in the White House affect your retirement. Give Scott a call, 609-488-4646. No cost, no obligation. 609-488-4646. Investment advisory services are offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC.
I call it the chicken and the egg. The chicken is the investment. The egg is the dividend. And so when the chicken pops out the eggs, if you don't need the money, let's reinvest the eggs and buy more chickens.
Man, that's just an excellent analogy, Scott.
This is Financial Insanity with Scott McLean, powered by McLean Advisory Group.
Today, we're hopping in our time machine and going back to 1990. This is Financial Insanity. I'm Alex Dingman alongside Scott McLean, McLean Advisory Group. If you have questions, the number 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. Sometimes it's fun to take a trip down memory lane and also just to remind folks of what was going on back then, what were the prices of things. So here are some news pop culture highlights, Scott, from 1990. Well, you had, unfortunately, the Persian Gulf War started when Iraq invaded Kuwait.
Yeah.
You had NASA launch the Hubble telescope into space. Top movies: Ghost, oh yes, of course, Dances with Wolves, Pretty Woman, and Home Alone. All classics.
Wow.
On November 12th, 1990, the concept of the World Wide Web was formally proposed by Tim Berners-Lee. So way back 1990, the idea of the World Wide Web first announced. How about some financial stuff, Scott? So the medium home value, about $79,100 to be exact. Yep. The Dow actually ended 1990, 2,633 that year. And let's see, you get a CD at the bank with an interest rate of around 8% in 1990, and then it would cost you, somewhere about $12 to $15 for a CD. And if you're real young out there, you might be a CD. You just talked about a CD.
That's when you had to burn them and save money. You had to burn your CDs.
Compact disc is what that stands for. Yeah. And the CD, that was technology, didn't quite, stand the test of time, unlike the record from a different, obviously time, but the record's kind of come back.
Totally different.
CDs,
I mean,
don't know
just
if we'll
think about it.
that.
Go back that far. Ghost, Dancing with Wolves. Dances with Wolves. I think about that in Pretty Woman. It seems like just yesterday. It's like yesterday. I still feel like I'm 18, 20 years old. Though some of you older people out there, like my age, think, you know what? Your body feels like 90, but your brain thinks you're 20. It's amazing.
Right.
We're talking about economics. I think about the 90s. As you brought up, Alex, CD rates, and you weren't even around then. When were you born, Alex?
Oh, I was born mid-'80s. So I was there, but not.
You were still.
My mom and dad, they were worried about the CDs at the bank. I was concerned about Mickey Mouse. And,
exactly right.
Playing sports
and the fancy spoiler in the back of your bicycle or the banana seat.
You know it. That was freedom, baby. That's what that bicycle meant.
And the economic times, guys, if you remember out there, listen, I've been in the business since 1983, so I was in the muck with a lot of you. We had the early recession, 1990s, and that started the mid-90s, which really largely triggered the S&L crisis This was the S&L crisis time, guys. And again, this is when oil spiked, and maybe you wanted to sell some gold. The gold spiked. So again, this was during the Persian Gulf, and of course the rising interest rates in the late 80s, combat inflation. They think unemployment. So this is cyclical. It goes on and on. You think about the massive taxpayer funded bailouts. Did we not have that? We had that, of course, in the 2000, and of course, when the market took a real crash in 2008, we had 5 different bailouts and payouts, and remember the cash for clunkers. And so economic times in the 90s, guys, this is really real. In the 80s, of course, the federal, remember they raised interest rates to combat inflation, which led to what? A cooling economy. And these high interest rates, again, thinking about, Scott, how do we get through what we're going through now? Can we look back and learn? And I believe history we can learn from it. The problem is when people don't learn from history and you repeat the same crap over and over again. Now let's go overseas. In Europe, we had a treaty going on, and it was being negotiated. Again, a lot of things happened, Alex. And I think you remember, well, I think, Alex, you were going to talk about Social Security.
Yeah.
Because remember, we had Social Security. What was the checks? The average check was, how much was the average check, Alex?
Yeah, the average check. So again, we're going back to 1990 here. The average
Right.
Social Security check was about $550.
Yeah.
And
what is it now? I think the max is what, 2032? I mean, shoot.
yeah, well, and the number of retirement plans with a 401k feature, 97,614. That was the number of retirement plans with a 401k feature. Now, about 19.5 million people were participating in 401k plans with assets totaling nearly $385 billion. And now I would say, Scott, that's 1990. I would think people even now, or at least we try to have people realize even more the kind of things they're going to have on their own in retirement to pay for things, to not rely necessarily on Social Security and 401k plans. Is that something you've seen since 1990, people doing a better job, companies doing a better job getting people to participate in?
So, Alex, you know, you're right. If you remember, you won't remember, but if all of us old people, we had the pension was fading out. The profit sharing and that was changing.
Right.
And they were taking the ownership of the corporations, now putting them on the backs of the employees. And so that's why we find now, as of contrast to now, we get 60 million active participates in the 401k plan, where back then it was hardly anything. And we had 19.5 million participating back then. So that has really increased. And if you're not an active participant, if you're listening to this and you're young, please participate. Even if they don't match, my goodness gracious, you can really do yourself a favor. Why? Because it's automatically coming out of your payroll. You're going to forget about it. You're going to live on that paycheck. So again, these are really, really important. I think about the 90s. Maybe if you can't remember the 90s, think about the Blockbuster. Remember the late fees?
Oh, yeah.
Hit your account? Well, Blockbuster's no longer.
No.
And Wayne Huizinga now, of course, doesn't own it. He's got rid of that company. So you kind of, I remember when visiting with him down there in Miami Dolphins, spent many years. By the way, Alex, if you're out there and you're in the 90s, Alex might not remember this, although he might have played with them, called the Beanie Babies. That was a hot item. The values of Beanie Babies were skyrocketing. So you either bought Beanie Babies or you bought stock. I'm not sure what you guys did, but I was around. I was in the business, and it was a crazy, crazy time, and it's crazy now as well.
Well, and Scott, for folks,
Want to learn more?
609-488-4646. Let me make it real clear. Love to hear from you. 609-488-4646. By the way, that's our website. Just put a .com and learn about us. Don't put this off. I love to hear from you. Bring in your questions. We have answers. I promise you the time we spend will be totally worth your time.
Absolutely. As we're going back in time today, we're going back to 1990. And one thing we have to mention, Scott, we are a financial education show, is that there was a recession that occurred in 1990. Now, it wasn't a super long recession, did last 8 months. Now, it was characterized by a sluggish recovery from job losses. And so what led to this? Well, a few things. Restrictive monetary policy by the Federal Reserve to lower the rate of inflation, poor consumer confidence, real estate collapse, and another thing that led to this recession was a jump in oil prices. Average monthly price of a barrel of oil jumped from $17 to $36, which that's a significant leap. So a few things here that led to that recessions that we can learn from, Scott. Maybe.
We are. Now, obviously, we're looking at oil prices, what, $100? I mean, the price of oil has been jumping all around the place. And we have now, perhaps, if we go into the 2025 era, or if we're in 25 right now, the price of oil, well, what is it? I don't know. In October, it was $68. Just before that was $100. Now, of course, the price, the West Texas, they call it the WTI, is $74 as of October 1st. 2024. So now, obviously, we're the thinking about prices are changing. Well, change. Bell bottoms, they come back. Mini skirts, they come back. They go, they come back. But you know what doesn't come back is regrets. Not taking action on things that maybe financially you should think about. Maybe not paying attention to the entire picture of your finances. Have you really looked at your portfolio in light of, do I have enough saved? Will I run out of money? Well, how will inflation really evaporate my money, or will it not? Am I investing for income or investing for growth? These are common questions, and I can tell you about the chicken and the egg. The chicken is the investment, but let's enjoy the eggs as we retire. Can it continue to grow? So as the stock market goes up and down, the eggs keep coming back. And as interest rates are dropping, investing for income could be a tremendous opportunity.
Want to learn more?
609-488-4646. Why? You might have questions. I have answers. We've been doing this since 1983, and now I'm going strong for another 40 years if God allows me. If not, my staff will keep the business going. But we want to help you. 609-488-4646. By the way, that's our website.
Yeah, that makes it real easy, financialinsanity.com. And Scott, this was fun as we were going back to 1990. And, well, if you are preparing to retire today, then, well, you're probably well into your career in the 90s and hopefully starting to build up those retirement savings. And so if you are one of those folks and you have questions, again, that number 609-488-4646. But the other great thing that we hope people do is learn from past generations as well. And so, Scott, I know one thing you mentioned, those for maybe those people that are pre-retirees, maybe this younger folks, is to just save early. And it might seem silly, you know, you're 18, you're 20.
Alex,
yeah.
1990s, it was a tech bubble, and it went to 1999. The price to earnings ratio was 44-1. Everybody had to be in the tech bubble, and it's now heading again, the AI movement. So I want you to be aware you still need to be diversified, and you need to be diversified in portfolios. So don't put too much of your wealth in the hottest AI movement out there, which is fine, but be careful. This is why people want to get well defined and make sure you're really protected. You're buttoned up legally, tax-wise, and financially.
No, that is very wise. And so, again, a final time, that number for Scott McLean and his team at McLean Advisory Group, 609-488-4646, 609-488-4646. Until next time, thank you so much for listening to Financial Insanity.
This radio program may contain information which has gone regulatory or other significant changes since its original recording. The information and views expressed on today's show is educational in nature and is not intended to be a recommendation for any specific investment, product, strategy, plan, tax, or legal advice. Information presented is believed to be factual and up to date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy. Investment advisory services offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisory firm. McLean Advisory Group and Sound Income Strategies, LLC, are not associated entities.
This radio show is a paid placement.
Stop for a moment and think about this. Do you know how much money in your 401k or IRA is actually yours? Or will the government take a bigger chunk than you thought? Remember, you still might owe taxes on that money. But do you have a plan to help make sure you don't pay more than you should? At McLean Advisory Group, we believe you deserve to keep more of what you've earned, which is why we're here to help you navigate the confusing world of retirement taxes. It's your money. You deserve to know what's at stake. Right now, taxes are historically low, but they won't be this low forever. So call the McLean Advisory Group team today so you don't miss out on this opportunity. 609-488-4646. That's 609-488-4646. You work hard for your money, and we'll work just as hard to help you keep it. McLean Advisory Group, 609-488-4646. Investment advisory services offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. McLean Tax Advisory Group and Sound Income Strategies are not associated entities.
Who likes uncertainty? Wall Street certainly does not. With near record inflation and partisan politics, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. What will America's future look like? What will your future look like? Will your taxes go up? Will your savings go down? For more than 40 years here in the Jersey Shore area, Scott McLean and the team at McLean Advisory Group have seen uncertainty come and go. No matter what the future holds, Scott can help you create a plan designed to preserve your finances in uncertain times. And it's not a matter of if those uncertain times will show up, but when. Call 609-488-4646 now to meet with Scott McLean and the team at McLean Advisory Group. If uncertainty is causing you to feel insecure, Scott McLean might be able to help. Call 609-488-4646 and schedule your visit today. Again, that's 609-488-4646.
Investment advisory services are offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of